Welcome in for another Warchant one-on-one. This is Ira Schoffel, managing editor of Warchant.com, and I'm joined today by a guy who I'm not really sure why we're doing this because he's about to leave town on us. Jake Pfeil is Florida State's longtime head athletic trainer for football. Before that, he was the athletic trainer for baseball. He's been involved in FSU's sports medicine department for a couple decades now. Also did his undergraduate work at Florida State before going to grad school at Mississippi State. And he is if you've been paying attention to the news, he's leaving the program. He's got a job as director of sports medicine with the Atlanta Falcons, which is a great accomplishment, much deserved, and we're happy for you, Jake. But before you leave, we wanted to sit down with you and talk a little bit about your time at Florida State and where things are going. So first of all, congratulations and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Ira. It really hit me. You just said it, but also in a few of y'all's articles when it started off with long time athletic trainer, that doesn't seem normal or right, but it is. But it has been a long time all of a sudden, but a good long time. So
yeah, actually, it hasn't been that long. I searched your name on Twitter and to see if the news was out there, and I came across one of my tweets when you took the football job 10 years ago. So that you've only been doing in the scope of Twitter that you got the job as head athletic trainer for football. Yeah. So, but like, we said, you had baseball before that. So we're going to talk about some of that, some of your time at Florida State, things you saw, things you participated in, and then also kind of looking forward. First of all, though, on the topic of the Falcons job, that's got to be kind of I'm not gonna say the pinnacle of your profession, but getting an NFL job, you're gonna be heading up their sports medicine department. And that's incredible. Was that something that you had on your list, or did you expect maybe you'd just be a college athletic trainer for your career?
It kind of came and went back and forth several times, I guess, through my whole career. When you first start to get into this, even in college, you always look at, okay, well, that might be the top level, so you kind of throw your eyes at it. And then I had those opportunities while I was in school to start interning with them, with the Falcons, even during summers, where you go up there and just absolutely work your butt off for training camps and get a lot of experience and exposure. And even then, yeah, it was like, all right, this is pretty cool, but still just in school here. And when I got done with graduate school, I went and did a whole season with them. That was way back in 2002. And honestly, after that, while I enjoyed it, I kind of afterwards thought, I don't know if that is for me back then. And it was, at a time in my life where, my wife now was getting done with school herself and was trying to figure out, what's next and looking at different opportunities. And, somehow we ended up back here and that's where we've been, but then you do start to look at it again, as you start kind of checking things off along the way, and certain things get accomplished as you go and you grow and you kind of start looking at it again, and it did kind of creep back in my mind here a few years ago. But it had to be the right place and the right spot and the right time. And all of a sudden those three things just hit. So.
But as I said, you're a Florida State guy, you did your undergrad at Florida State. You're, even though you work for the school, a lot of people take checks and work for schools, but you are a Florida State guy. And you and Cheryl, your wife, have been with the department for so long. That's kind of the thing that I've heard from so many people, over the last couple of weeks is, people can't even imagine, what that sports medicine department is going to be like and really FSU athletics without you guys around. From that standpoint, is it hard to even imagine, not putting on garnet and gold and heading into the Moore Center Monday to Friday, well, Monday to Sunday?
You can't say it's not going to be hard and already is. And yesterday was my official last day. And guess where I went today? I went back down there because I still had to go get some more stuff, but I don't know what tomorrow holds. I might be back there tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it will be, and this process with the Falcons has been going on here for a few weeks. So even after the interview, I felt pretty good about it, that it could happen, and I kind of started preparing myself then for that whole mental exiting process, and that helped a little bit, to be able to take a few weeks to really get through it and start thinking about things. And the office I was in, I'd been in that office for 10 years, and there was a whole lot of crap in that office that just slowly piled up. I'm a packer, hoarder or whatever,
Yeah.
pack rat, but that took a little while. But what it is, and it is especially to people too, you know, more than anything to people. And there's been plenty of great people that I've dealt with that have come and gone, but still the ones here, when you're the one that's going to be gone and leaving them, you know, and the things that are going on that you see, and especially with the newer football staff that we've got, and the things we've been working through together already. And I was really excited to work with a lot of these people, you know, and that's hard. But you stay friends for sure, you know, and there's a big piece of me that's always going to be here and always have an eye on it. That's for sure.
Before you took over the football athletic training, I guess in 2011, I think was the year right after Jimbo had taken over as head coach. Before that, you did baseball. What was it like working for Coach Martin Sr.? And, you know, obviously some tremendous teams you were a part of. What was that time like? And at that time, you know, not comparing it to football or anything else, but how much did you enjoy your time doing baseball?
You know, people ask me all the time, what'd you like better? You like that better? Baseball better, football better? And you can't compare them. There's zero comparison between the two. They're completely different. And there's great things about both. But I got no hesitation in telling people the 6 years I was with that program were 6 of the best years of my life. I was at an age that it was really my first job of really like, that's your team to go take care of. Hands-on all the way, like you're making the calls. And so that was great for me. But I was at an age over those players where I was kind of like their big brother in a way, right. You know, and there's some guys from those teams that lifelong friends, you know, at this point that I'll be close with till the day I die. And it was really a great 6 years of my life. And working for 11 was, you knew it at the time, how cool it was and how big a deal it was. But it just kept growing every year, how cool it was, you know. And I learned so much from him about how to handle guys, how to handle athletes of that age and the things they're going through. Because obviously he'd been doing it my entire life. And
then some.
There were just so many lessons from him that could happen at any minute of any day, doing anything, you know, no matter what the setting was in, out on the field with the team, or just hanging out in the coach's locker room, or having a beer with him in the room on the road. I mean, so many opportunities with him to just learn about it all. And not to mention just learn about baseball, but that was one thing, of course, but just the job and handling not just players, but administrators that you deal with and the challenges that come there. There's no way to put a value on the time that I got with him. And he's one of the best men I've ever known. And he's like another father figure to me in a way. And also just a really good friend, you know, that you can count on. And again, I can't keep saying how much you just learn from the guy.
Yeah. Did you, with that in mind, when Jimbo approaches you about making the move to football, was there any apprehension about that? I mean, obviously it's a bigger status, more pay, everything else. But you were so, you know, and again, for people that don't know, I mean, we know because we see you every day, but athletic trainer, I mean, you're in it, man. Like you're in the locker, you're in the clubhouse, you're in the dugout during the games, you know what everybody's going through on the team. So you're a part of it. Was that difficult at all, making the move to football?
It was, because again, I was so comfortable there those 6 years. I was growing, but I was so comfortable being there and being with him and the players we had. But you know, we talk about it all the time. You're getting out of your comfort zone, right? It's growing, and it was time to do that. And I remember it was after we got our brains beat in, I think, by Texas A&M in the Super Regional. It was our last game there for me. And the very next day, after any baseball season, whenever it ends, he's going through all these player meetings. Every single player's got to go up and have a meeting with him. Here's the plan for off season next year, or see you later, or whatever. And he got all the way through that day. And I think I sat in his office for about 2 hours, because he was going through some stuff too at that time, making some staff changes that were really hard on him. And we just let it fly for each other for about 2 hours about changes that have to be made and things we got to do in life. And I think we were therapeutic for each other, honestly, that day. But he knew I had to do it, and to have a guy like him, I know I had to do it, but have a guy like him be the backup voice to say, you got to do it, and it's just time. But it's crazy. I remember those years there, and especially towards the last couple of years, I thought, I don't know what's next for me, but I remember saying, I'm going to be the last guy that ever worked with him here,
Yeah.
And I think there was 3 more after me. Or maybe 2 more, I guess. But, things like that seem silly when you think about them now, but it was the move. And he, again, having somebody like him just validate it, that it's time for you to go do something, and I felt good about it, that it was 6 great years there, and had gotten everything I needed out of it, and hopefully I gave them what they needed, and it was time for the next thing.
So do you, in everybody's line of work, you become better as the longer you do it. But I think when we think of, athletic training or sports medicine, you think, okay, what these injuries are, and what the rehab is prescribed, but how different are you as an athletic trainer? Do you remember yourself in the early 2000s? Do you remember, or have you seen yourself evolve, and in what ways?
Yeah, I didn't know anything. You think but there's not a day on this job that seems like that you don't maybe encounter something new, honestly, or a new way to look at it, and that's one of the great things about the job, is you never know what's going to walk through the door some days, or what situation the tide's going to bring, and you got to be ready to keep learning. As soon as you stop learning, you're probably dead. So
and is it mostly like how to deal with different people in their different circumstances? I mean,
there's, honest to goodness, there's medical conditions that show up sometimes that you just never dealt with, because it's something weird or something rare, or maybe somebody have some sort of odd traumatic injury that, sure, you knew about this, but it's not like something you see every day, and maybe something you might have saw once in your career that happens to somebody,
right.
So there's always, you got to be ready for anything, and on that note too, you got to be ready to find some answers, and that's a great thing about our profession, is we're all very close knit, my colleagues at other schools, and we're all fighting. There's no rivalries in our profession. We're all fighting the same fights and living the same life, and trying to do the same thing for the athletes and the patients we take care of. So you talk to each other so much, and that's a great thing about this profession, is whatever shows up, and maybe you're just not sure, you can find some advice on it somewhere, and that's a real rewarding part of it, I think, the resource that we all are for each other. But you're asking, what have I learned? School is one thing, and school teaches you the basics and a lot. And I talk about this all the time, but you don't really learn anything until you get into like graduate school, where you've got real responsibility, and where you're maybe then really taking care of a team on your own. And I did football in graduate school, so it wasn't just me taking care of Mississippi State football, but the boss I had there had so much stuff going on, and he had 2 graduate assistants helping him with football. And that was it, which is about as small a staff I've ever heard of in Power 5 football. So we had this just incredible opportunity to learn there, the other graduate assistants that were with me. And until you're doing that, the stuff you learn in school's got to be there. It's got to be a foundation, but until you're doing it, you're not getting anything really figured out. So, but again, I don't think it matters how long you've been doing it. There's always something new coming up, it seems like.
So when you go over to football, it's a pretty good time. Jimbo's first few years, the program flips from the end of Coach Bowden's tenure, and obviously the team wins it all in 2013. That run was unbelievable. Could you tell that the level of athletes, from day one, that, okay, these guys a little different than what's been coming through here for the last few years? I mean, was it obvious?
The guy knew a little bit about recruiting, there's no doubt. And those early years of all that. And, when that opportunity came up, you talk about making the decision to do it or not. It was such a chance to recognize, okay. And of course it had been down. Right. And it was, okay, I get to potentially be a part of trying to get it back up, and you felt like it could happen. And, certainly let's go, and to have that chance and really see Jimbo's direction on where he wanted to take things. But yeah, man, that guy could go find him, and you look at those players we had 2011, which class, the 2011 class was, I think, was the #1 class in the country. Right. And
Seems right.
So their junior year.
Or in 2012 was a great class too. That was 2012 was
They
when
were
James
all-
came in. But
But
it was
I
one
think
after
the
another.
11 class was, O'Leary and Rashad Green and those guys, Freeman and all those guys. So when they're a junior, that's when we punch the ticket, and it just makes sense. A #1 class, and then 3 years later, they're national champs. So yeah, man, there was, even the baseball years and not participating every day with football, you saw what was around, and not to downgrade anybody, but yeah, it was a big change in what was walking through the door those years, and it was hard. It was hard work. Those years were him trying to establish back to the culture he thought it needed to be of real toughness, and it was work big time. And there was a lot of beat up players, and a lot of really, really, really tough practices. And it's year round, there's no doubt about this stuff. This football stuff is year round now. Okay. And season goes right into those February workouts. It was fourth quarter program, we called it then, and then that's right into spring ball. And then you take a couple weeks off and you're right into the summer program, and then that goes right into training camp. I mean, it's nonstop. So it was really rewarding to be a part of that, and that build up from 2011 to 2012. And, obviously 2012, we were really good too, but that hitting the peak in 13 and to be a part of that was extremely rewarding, and really everything I ever wanted to do as far as this job, it was to come here and do that. So
what did I was going to ask you one thing about Jameis, but I'll come back to that. But you're talking about how physical practices were at times, and it's kind of legendary now. And Jimbo talked about it back then a little bit, and then I've since seen James Wilder and some other people have done interviews talking about it. That one practice where they went goal line, I think Jimbo told us right afterwards, they went goal line like 17 or I don't know how many straight plays, and just kind of went to war.
It was upper 20s, as I recall.
As the athletic trainer, looking after the care of these young men, what are you thinking at that point, and how did they come out of it?
Well, they were beat up, but as I recall it, it was the last Saturday scrimmage prior to the spring game. We were in Doak, and it was just a normal old scrimmage day, which would end with a goal line, maybe 8-10 plays or something. And it just got out of hand by the players doing it. It wasn't Jimbo or anybody saying, line up and do it again. This is awful. It just got crazy. It got intense, and it got very chit-chatty, and they kept lining up and going. And then once they were showing that response, then Jimbo and everybody were kind of ripping and snorting and going with it too, right? But
let's run it back.
No, he was just like, do it again, and go ahead, but it was the players doing it. It really was.
Right.
And I mean, gosh, some players, man. But I do remember, like, somebody, I think it was Tim Jernigan, stuffs a guy, or there's a big pile up right there in the A gap or something, and he's down and everybody's up, and I go look at him, and he looks like, he's a little out of it and probably has a head injury, and he is not letting me take him out, wanting to stay in there. Like, I'm having to know, like, Jimbo, help me here or something, this guy can't keep going, so we got him out. And I think there was 4 or 5 guys that didn't play in the spring game because of that goal line session, but nobody cared, because it truly was a cross the line moment, and I told Mike Norvell about this back before spring ball, when we were just talking about expectations for the spring, and I told him about it, and that stuff's still on tape. You can go watch it,
Wow.
and he did, and his eyes were kind of lighting up when I'm telling him about it. So we had a similar day, this past spring, by design though, a little more extended goal line period, as you know, as well in there in the stadium one day that Coach Norvell had planned up. And I thought it was also really good, but that day in that spring was definitely a line was crossed that day, and you really knew what you had. And there was a lot of excitement after it.
I remember talking to people about Jameis, and there's a million Jameis stories. Obviously, you got to see him as close as anybody, but I remember talking to some people, Mark Robinson and other people later after the fact, and they would just say that, a lot of the things Jameis did in terms of talking to the team and the way he was around the players and stuff, it just like nobody knew what he was going to do, but he just had that natural charisma or just knew how to. Is it unlike anybody you've been around? I mean, in terms of that part of it?
Is Jameis unlike anybody I've ever been around? Yes, in many ways. Sure, I've been around other quarterbacks that had that quarterback it to him, but Jameis had a lot of stuff to Jameis, that.
But like the pregame speech at Clemson, like that,
yeah,
I think people think that was kind of like, not choreographed, but the TV cameras were in there but like, it wasn't like he was coached up to, he just started being Jameis.
That's him, man. And there were other times you'd see it as well, he is so smart. The guy is really, really smart. And, certainly Jameis as a younger man had some silly times about him that we all know about and things that happened, but that's growing up, and he has grown up a lot. I talked to him last week, and he is such a bright human being. People don't think about that. That guy is smart, and that you can't play quarterback like that, right? And not be smart. And but you talk about the draw to him, and it is, and everybody, like from day one, there was a draw to him. I remember one time at his first year, he was redshirting, and Dr. Thompson, who's still our team doc, was out at practice one day, and he didn't always have the opportunity to come to practice. He'd see guys after practice. He was out there, and we're looking around, and he kind of was noticing at the other field some stuff going on, the ball zipping everywhere too. And he'll tell you the story too. He said, "Who is that?" And I looked over there, and I said, "That's the future." I was quite prophetic that day, but he certainly was. But
what I want to move on to Dalvin. So Dalvin, the whole thing with his hamstrings, but then he would come back to play again. What was happening there? I mean, it was almost like he knew if his hamstring was about to go, and he would pull himself out, and then you guys would check him on him, and then next thing you know, he's back in the game running for 45 yards. I mean, what was going on with Dalvin and his hamstrings?
Dalvin is I've told people this too. People always say, "Who's the best?" That's the guy. Right. And we talked about Jameis, and Jameis is certainly special. But I tell people, if God came and said there's a football game tomorrow and your soul's on the line and you can pick one of them dudes, that's the one I'm taking.
Right.
There's no doubt. There's no hesitation. Saying the toughest is not doing it justice. The stuff that this guy would play with just because he wanted to play. So the hamstring, he had one hamstring injury. It was that Wake Forest game, 2015. Right. He busts like a 96-yard touchdown.
Yeah, I think it was like a 96 or 98-yard touchdown.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's next drive, he just catches a little swing pass and turns it up funny and pulls his hamstring. So we MRI like crazy. We MRI hamstrings. We have a scoring system on him, and this was a legit hamstring strain. The scoring system we use said this guy usually will probably miss a game, maybe 2 games, that kind of time frame.
Right.
But, we always say you treat the patient and not the MRI. So, but we knew we maybe had a chance. So, of course, the next game is Miami. So Jimbo was just do whatever you have to do. If he can't practice, he can't practice, whatever it's got to be. Right. So, and that was one of the first times we really were able to use this GPS stuff in a setting like this. Sure, always tracking the numbers and then what, right?
Yeah. So
I said, all right, this guy, if we're going to have any chance, like Jim was like, if he can practice, do something by Wednesday, that'll just help me game plan here, right? So Craddock, our GPS guy at the time, I said, look, I need to see what his numbers look like on a normal Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, what they look like, what his total yards are and all that. So we know we're going to cap that at say 40% the first day. If he can get 40% of his normal Wednesday and see how he feels, so he's studying that stuff live during the, so he's like, okay, he's hit 40% of his total yards of what he normally, all right, well, he's done. How do you feel? I was like, I'm not terrible. I feel good. Well, you're done. And we would build that into Thursday as well and Friday as well. And he added a little more every day. But bottom line, all that fancy stuff out the window, the guy's just a tough ass. And he wasn't gonna miss a Miami game. Come on, it's Miami. Okay. And obviously had the game of games too, but the whole time I'm standing over there just praying to God that it works, but it's just him, man. So yeah, we would have that Saturday happen, and then he'd be back sore. He'd be somewhat set back, muscles back worn out. And we went through that program with that monitoring for about 3 weeks, and it was working. And then as I recall the Georgia Tech game that year we lost, he got a little high ankle sprain during that game and had to miss a game. He missed a game with a high ankle sprain. And again, there's another example, but there were those times though. Yeah, he'd be out the gate against somebody. Louisville, I think, was one, and it just grabbed him funny, and he'd just go down. Yeah,
and he'd like start limping during the play.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that's it. We're done.
And really, at the time, I mean, that was kind of the whole offense. I mean, if he goes down,
heck yeah. So we'd get him over there and evaluate him and talk to him some more. And I'm thinking in my mind, well, I'm sure he's done here, but it's always just what he can do. And we'd work on him and we'd stretch him. We'd do some soft tissue work, and he'd move around and say, I feel okay, and he'd just go back in, and it's certainly if he's out there like limping to the huddle, we're not going to let him stay in there. But it was just him, man. There's nobody like him. Hopefully my first week with the Falcons, I'm going to start getting some trades together.
Put in a good word.
Yeah.
You talked about Dr. Thompson. I wanted to talk about the whole staff you guys have, because when Coach Norvell was gracious enough to let me come and do the story about Keyshawn coming back from his injury last year, and I was able to watch some of your staff work and Alora and everybody, and then I know the relationship you have with the docs at TOC, and it seemed like, I mean, I don't have experience looking at other setups at other schools, but it seems like you guys have had a great setup between the relationships between the staff you guys have, a lot of people that have been there a long time, but then also the docs at TOC. How important has that been to just doing your job?
Couldn't do the job without them. There's lots of different models on how this can be in different schools and places. And some places have a model where you're maybe directly tied with a med school, and you got doctors everywhere, right? You got all the doctors you could ever want. And that's not how we do things with our relationship with TOC. And it's, a long-standing relationship, and from Dr. Haney and Dr. Henderson and how they set it up years ago. And it's what I like. It's what I always wanted and never looked at changing it. And because what it gives you is a doctor, or a couple of doctors in our cases, that are very embedded with you and entrenched with you. When you get into situations where maybe you have somebody different every couple of days, okay, this doc's going to see you on Mondays and Wednesdays, and he's going to see you on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It can get messy. Mm-hmm. And having that one voice from who's providing the care, and having, you can really, Dr. Thompson, Dr. Stowers, and some other guys we got very, you just get accustomed to working with each other. You go in the room with somebody and there's a situation to manage, and like we're telepathic even on some things, on what needs to be said to the kid, everything that we need to do to teach the kid and help him understand what's going on. And Dr. Thompson's really good at that in that setting, of explaining to the kid what's going on, and here are the options, and involving the parents, and we educate. We're going to show you this MRI image and show you exactly what we're talking about. It may not make sense to you, but you're going to know you got showed all of it, and that's huge in those relationships that we have. And I couldn't do it without them. And I think they've always thought they couldn't do it without us, being who we are on the side of things. It's been a very, very good relationship and constructive relationship to be able to provide the care and maintain the trust with the athletes. And I will really miss that for sure.
And I'll speak to this since I'm sure you won't, but when I did that story, talking to Keyshawn's family and talking to a few other families through the years, I mean, they're real appreciative of the way you guys do, not only take care of their kids, but then also involve them in the process. And I imagine, as a parent, if somebody else is taking care of your kid, and if you don't have information, that would be terribly frustrating. I think they were very appreciative of the way you guys handled that.
Well, it's the only way to do it, and it's just that. It's especially once you have kids, right? How would you want your kid to be handled? How would you want to be treated if it was your kid? And there's many a time on a Saturday, right, that you're standing in the middle of Death Valley for Keyshawn's case or somewhere else, and you're going to call mom right then because she's sitting somewhere really worried, when that kid goes on a cart. So we're going to get a hold of her as fast as we can, so she knows what's going on and you can come see him. And I think it's just treating people the way people need to be treated,
Right. How was COVID season? And I know it's not over yet, but I know that part of it fell a lot on you and your staff in terms of the actual, and I know you had a lot of other people helping as well, the medical school and everybody else, but how challenging, is there even a way to describe how challenging this last year has been?
The hardest professional year of my life, and leading up to it, like I said, Jameis was the future. I remember sitting with our staff, and I told them before the players even got back, I told them, I said, this is going to be the most challenging year of our professional lives. If you think it's not, you're crazy. Get ready. And it certainly was. And I'm about to get it back into it worse because it's kind of settled down a little bit on our end of things, where obviously football's off season. You're not mandated to test all the time. And plus things are, in our area especially, things are getting better. Numbers are getting better. Stats are getting better. And I've been getting emails throughout the day in the last week about everything waiting for me when I get up there, that it's not much changed. So somebody's banging on my door. Sorry. But like they're still testing every day before you get in the building for this off season. So I'm about to get back into the mess of it, but it's no fun. There's no doubt about it. It's no fun. There was a point, during this past season, as you're testing 3 times a week, and you're going to test one afternoon. I would get those results early the next morning, as we're getting into the building to start our day really early, open the door at 6. And I'm receiving those results as I wake up. I'm like started to dread looking at that phone every morning. What's this thing going to say? But you just start rolling with it. It is what it is. You just handle it. There's a corny saying that Dr. Elko taught us, so what, now what? I started living by so what, now what this year. Like, okay, these 5 guys are positive. Now we got to do this. I'm not going to go in here and work on sore shoulders and sore hamstrings today. I'm doing this today. And that's what those days became, the contact tracing and the spreading of the information to all the people that need it, and I like to think we got pretty good at it, how we would disperse information as quickly as possible to the staff and who needs it and what's going on today. And these people, all these people today are gone, they got contact traced or something, and
but that had to be,
I won't miss it. One day it's going to be over. And
yeah, but I mean, it had to be incredibly frustrating for the players. I mean,
sure,
so you're having to have those conversations and
especially when they first got back, they didn't understand it all. Some of them did, but most of them just really didn't grasp what this was or was going to be, or how strict some things were going to be. And like any of it, you got to teach them, you got to educate them as much as you can, and as many opportunities as you can to keep, even how many times you say it over and over again, maybe the 7th time before it really starts to click with one of them, that this is what's going on now, and this means that, especially when you get into contact tracing and exposure and things like that, this means that. And I had to constantly fall back on what are the rules, and you'd get them memorized. And then of course things would start changing as you went through a season as well. But you have to take each individual case, and break it down through the protocol and the rules and find an answer. So.
And then last thing I want to touch on so last summer, when you guys were going through everything in terms of everything being shut down, and it was still getting accustomed to a new coaching staff, as you mentioned earlier, Coach Norvell and these new guys. Talking to you at the time, from some stories we did at the time, you seemed very excited about the direction of things. You like Coach Norvell and where things were going. I assume that's still the case. And how have you seen things go over the last year and a half? It seems like things are trending in the right direction. Is that kind of how you feel as you look at it as you're leaving?
Absolutely. And really the hardest part of leaving is that, and I've told him this, and the growth that I've seen in the year he's been here, and that the year being the year that it was, with the time away and all the virtual and the mess that it was. We had said that many months ago. He and I said, if we can get through that, what we just got through together, we're going to be fine no matter what. Me and you, that was easy to see. But the growth that occurred even in that messed up year that it was tremendous. And I can't imagine what 2 years, say, normalcy, hopefully, of his program being established, how he wants to do things and recruit the way he wants to recruit. And I that's one of the hardest parts about leaving, because I really, really think I know where it's going, because of him and the staff here and lots of people on his staff. Coach Storms is awesome, really, really good. The work he's done with his players already and the changes you see. I think the sky's the limit. I do. I think things are going to be really good here really soon. I think there's a chance that it can be. He just got to get it. I think any coach needs it, some time to get it right. And obviously the couple of years we had prior to him getting here and correcting some things, and then this mess of a year that it was, but again, tremendous growth, even in that year, that I think it's going to be really exciting. I do.
Awesome, man. Well, I enjoyed it. Thanks for taking the time, man. And good luck with the Falcons. And I know you're going to be back around. Who's going to cook the, I don't know what low country boil or whatever you call your
crawfish boil,
your crawfish boil that you are famous for in the baseball season. What's going to happen there?
I hope somebody invites me. I don't know.
Well,
maybe that'll be my trip every year. If this NFL's off season and everything they're saying, then maybe I'll still come do it. So
awesome. Well, enjoyed it, Jake. Congratulations again, man. And look forward to talking to you soon and seeing you on the sidelines with the Falcons.
Thank you. I appreciate you and always being a pro and your friendship. Take care, man.
All right, man.